For you as things are playing out right now, and also President John Mahama requests a 30-day pardon for.
In a letter dated June 11, 2025, and addressed to investigative journalist Manasseh Azuri-Awuni, the president, through his secretary, Dr. Callistus Mahama, confirmed the contract's expiration and assured it will not be renewed. Away from that, President John Dramani Mahama has directed the Minister for Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation to collaborate with the National Communications Authority, NCA, to immediately restore the broadcast of 64 radio stations affected by recent regulatory actions.
.1 in Tamale and beyond, and also on W93.5 and 1 beyond. Your thoughts, views, comments and opinions are welcome at 3FM 927 radar to you and to the rest of the world. And we'll start off from Parliament, because the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association strike is topical on the floor of Parliament as we speak. Majority Leader Mahama Yariga is addressing the floor of the House on this matter.
All these are measures that this government is putting in place. And so, Mr. Speaker, when we met them today, we appealed to them, and they assured us that they were going to go and think about it, and hopefully by the close of business today, they will get back to this Parliament. We approached it in a very bipartisan manner, and I think they could see that this House is appealing to them as a collective, not as different political parties or as a government or as an opposition, but both as a government and an opposition. And they have taken our appeal seriously, and they promised to get back to us by close of business today. We want to assure our nurses that this Parliament stands with them. This Parliament, in the future budget, will make sure that as many of their concerns as possible are captured in that budget. This Parliament, I said, will work towards ensuring that as many as possible, their expectations are met. Mr. Speaker, as many as possible, their expectations are.
Honorable members, luckily the minister responsible for health is here. We need not make any further direction to him. Minister of Health, may we hear you on the issue?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me use this opportunity.
Also live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and on W93.5 and Y beyond. This is a live coverage of the happenings in Parliament. We'll cross over back to Parliament shortly. But because of that statement that Mahama Yariga has just made, that all things being equal, some good news will be heard before end of day today concerning this over almost 2-week strike by the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Let's cross over onto the telephone right now. Philemon Ejapong is the head of public affairs for the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, GRNMA, who've been on strike for some time now. Philemon, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Philemon. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, and good evening to your cherished listeners.
So we understand there was a little over 4-hour meeting earlier today in Parliament with the Health Committee. Are you able to describe exactly how the meeting played out and what resolution was reached, if there was any, at the end of the meeting?
Well, that's correct. We had a very lengthy discussion on the conditions of service that has called for this industrial action. As it stands, we are yet to commence our meeting with the National Council for debriefing and then a decision to be taken about the industrial action. It will be premature for me to put anything across until the Council has taken a decision.
But how do you describe, the engagement with the Health Committee of Parliament earlier today?
That was a fruitful engagement. They were forthcoming. They understand the situation of nurses and midwives, and they are of the view that the request being made is legitimate. It's due nurses and midwives. However, there is budgetary constraint and the difficulty in making room to be able to accommodate what is contained in the collective agreement. They have made a passionate appeal to the association to consider calling off the strike, whilst stakeholders continue to engage to discuss this issue further. Whatever appeal they have made is going to be put or tabled towards the National Council of the Association, and based on that, a decision will be reached.
I see, but you have always held that position that you're not going to renegotiate the terms of this collective agreement. But you're open to engagement or communication and not renegotiation. Is that position still relevant? Do you still hold on to that position even after this engagement?
Alfred, I think we have made a lot of comments in the past concerning this collective agreement. We are making progress from there. There is a passionate appeal from Parliament, and Parliament is the House of Laws. Once they've called us and discussed this extensively with us, we'll have to meet our council and take a decision. I wouldn't want to put anything across at this time when the council hasn't met yet.
And that's a fair point. And we understand that the Speaker of Parliament also sat through this meeting, correct?
The majority leader was there, and all the other important stakeholders in the healthcare were there, as well as the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health.
I see. But are you also able to tell us from based on this engagement and what has been happening over the past few days gone by, what the health ministry's posturing has been to the demands that you've been making over the period?
Well, the health minister is doing his job as a politician. He's a minister for health, but he's also an MP and a member of the National Democratic Congress as well. So his posture is based on the party, based on the ministry, and based on the resources that he has available for what he's doing. Secondly, a lot of the issues does not depend on the Minister for Health. It's more or less the Minister for Finance that is supposed to approve this collective agreement that has been installed. So the Health Ministry was just putting in place the necessary mitigating factors to make sure that the health of the public is not compromised in this strike action. However, these actions were in futility because it was not going to be able to fill in the gap. Nurses and midwives cannot be replaced. They are irreplaceable in their field of work, and that is it. That is the case.
I say, are you able to confirm this? We're just getting some information that the Christian health facilities, they have tried to recall, in fact, they made an appeal to you to have some of your members return to post in these Christian health facilities with some incentives, cash incentives. Are you able to confirm this for us?
I cannot confirm that. I don't have any formal communication on that.
Okay. And Philma, before I let you go, when is this meeting of the Council of the GRNMA supposed to take place so that you decide on what next to do?
In the next few hours, we'll start a meeting, and then based on the discussion, we will take a decision.
And that decision will be communicated before end of day?
I'll not be able to tell for sure, owing to the fact that it's already 5 p.m. Our meetings sometimes travel to 11 p.m., 12 p.m., 12 a.m., and I'm hoping this one shouldn't travel that much. Whatever it is, Ghanaians should be communicated to in due course.
Philman, I appreciate your time on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for having me.
Great. That's Philman Ejapong. He is the head of public affairs of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association there, indeed confirming that there was an over 4-hour meeting with the members of the Health Committee of Parliament, the majority leader and the minority leader sat through that meeting as well. We understand the Speaker of Parliament also spent some time in that particular meeting. There is going to be a National Council meeting of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Then, after that council meeting, which according to Philemon starts in the next few hours, A decision will be taken and eventually communicated by the Health Minister, Kobna Mintakando, is speaking about this before Parliament. Right now, let's cross over to Parliament and hear the Health Minister speak about the latest on this strike by the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association.
.7 3 FM 92.7 Urban Lifestyle Radio Station.
Together with all stakeholders for the successful and fruitful deliberations this morning as far as this strike is concerned. Mr. Speaker, the ministry Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Health is the mother ministry for the nurses and midwives, and will continue to behave like mothers for these nurses and midwives. Mr. Speaker, let me assure you that out of the fruitful deliberations we had this morning, once the strike is called off, we are committed in engaging our nurses and midwives to arrive at a mutually acceptable conditions so that, Mr. Speaker, they will continue to do what they do best, to contribute to the health care of this sector. I thank you for the opportunity.
Honourable members, that brings us to the end of that statement. Majority Leader, do we go back to questions? And if so, are we starting from urgent questions? Honourable members, we have urgent questions, mostly slated for the Minister responsible for health to respond to. Honourable members, the Minister of Health is in the House to respond to those questions. So let's proceed to take the question number 6A, standing in the name of Honourable Pius Kwame Nkwa Sebi Akuntumbra. Honourable member, you have the floor.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister of Health the current state of the Nzaura Health Center and the plans of government to make it operational. Thank you very much.
Minister, you have the floor.
That's the Health Minister, Kobna Mintakando, there, giving update to Parliament on the ongoing strike of the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. There's been what has been described as a fruitful discussion or engagement with the Health Committee of Parliament earlier today. So we await the communication from the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association after their National Council meeting, which we understand will take place in the next few hours. And so we have a colleague, that's Daniel Opoko, Chief Labour Correspondent, who is monitoring this particular meeting. When it starts, we'll definitely give you updates here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Earlier today, following that meeting with the Parliament Select Committee on Health, the striking nurses are expected to engage your National Council. Dr. Mark Nawani is the chair of the Select Committee on Health in Parliament.
We are very happy that they honored our invitation. And the same thing goes to the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Finance, and Fair Wages. They were all in to assist us, and we've had a very fruitful negotiations. We've tried to understand each other. We have tried as much as possible to synchronize our activities. And now, what we can say at this moment is that the discussions were fruitful, and we've asked, or the nurses have requested that they have to go back to their council. By their regulations, they have to go back to their council, and then we'll come back, or they'll come back, or we'll hear something from them. I think that is fair. If the Bushapeni is to send you to go and lead a discussion, you have to bring back the information to them first before any other issue can come out. So at this juncture, I know that you want some information more than this, but let's just exercise patience.
That's the Health Committee of Parliament Chair there talking to the media earlier today, Dr. Mark Nawani. Now, in a related development, it's day 4 of the total withdrawal of services by the nurses and various health centers are suffering the impact of this. In the Ashanti region, our correspondent William Evans Inkum reports the ongoing nurses strike is biting deep at the private health facilities as they remain choked. In the wake of the nurses' strike, referral cases have also been affected by the impasse. William Evans Inkum is going to be joining us on the telephone in a bit. We'll have an update on this particular one. And also, I want to take a listen to Dr. Ashura Bakari, who is a pediatrician at the Sontreso Hospital, Dr. Yao Enchi Emyam Hospital, and then Dr. Gabriel Boachi, Medical Director at the Emyam Hospital. Also been speak to William Evans Inkum, who's going to be joining us on the telephone in a bit. But take a listen to this.
Not many hospitals are taking care of newborn babies. And the doctors, for as much as we are able to do the work that nurses do, but we are not, our number is not as much as the nurses' number. So it's very difficult for us to continue taking care of very sick babies on admission in the absence of our nurses.
Over the last, I would say, about 4 days, we've done over 20 deliveries, and over half of these were referrals that required emergency cesarean sections.
And they come in continuously throughout the whole night, because when they go to Confanoch, they are sent back. They are sent back here. We have to manage, we have to do the best that we can. Sometimes we refer the patients, and the patient comes back to you. So we do the best to the best of our ability and to the best of our knowledge and capability.
As a situation there, and William Evans Inkum has been monitoring this impact on a number of health facilities, private health facilities in the Ashanti region. William, what more can you tell us about this rather serious impact that we're seeing of this nurses' strike on health facilities in the Ashanti region?
Well, so private facilities are recording high numbers at the various OPDs, a contrast to what we are seeing in most government hospitals. For instance, the Sontreso Hospital, Confanochi Teaching Hospital, and the Kumasi South Hospital. These places look almost as good as deserted, especially at the OPD where nurses are providing essential services, and even at the various critical units. So, for instance, we're talking about the HIV unit where patients come for the administer those drugs. The nurses are not there, and so the patient will have to bear the brunt, go to the MBU. Similar issue there. In fact, when I visited Sontreso MBU, I was almost shocked in tears because newly born babies who I would describe as premature, still incubators, there's no nurse attending to them. It's only the doctor who has abandoned the consulting room to at least offer some level of helping hand. So while she's working on a child, the others also, you hear them crying, just needed some level of attention, but there's nobody there to offer them that level of attention. So that is the situation at the various public hospitals in Kumasi. But then if you go to the private hospitals, that is where you see, the numbers. Most of the hospitals there are choked. But now, beyond the overwhelming numbers that they are even recording, what is even more concern to them has to do with the fact that critical cases or complex cases that hitherto you will refer to Confanochi Teaching Hospital, they will have to manage even with limited or no resources. Alfred.
See, great detail there, and I know this is one that you're keeping an eye on, and so we'll definitely connect with you again for some more updates. William Evans, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's go to the Bono East region where Belinda Tete is our correspondent there. Has also been observing how this Ghana Registered Nurse and Midwife Association strike is impacting health facilities in there. Belinda, what can you tell us?
Right, so the strike is really taking a toll on the region, with the fact that most of the public health facilities are not operating, and those that are even operating are operating with minimal access. And so most of these patients would have to seek for health service from the private facilities. Now, this is the issue. Even though with the rising number of OPD cases, these private facilities are recording, the issue they are having had to do with the logistics. Now, so the hospital I approached tells me that on a normal day, they usually record about 100 to 150 OPD cases in a day. But from last week, since the strike, they started recording a little over 200 and sometimes even 250 cases in a day. And so these numbers is really taking a toll on their workers. Now, this is where the issue is. Most of the workers, the nurses, both the nurses and the doctors, have to work for longer hours in order to be able to cater for these patients who come in. And also, aside that, they also are unable to take breaks. Most of the times, even if they have to go on breaks, it has to be for a very short period. So it's really taking a toll on the workers. Now, with the workers aside, even on the facilities they have, especially having to do with hospital beds, they are short of hospital beds. So this morning when I walked in, all their hospital beds are full. All their wards are full. And even until now, there are still some people who are waiting to be admitted. And so these people who are actually waiting to be admitted cannot be admitted. They would have to tend to them at the OPD and give them some medication, so they would have to go back home and probably come back the next day for checkups. And this is actually the strain it is putting on this private facility.
Belinda, thank you for this detail. Appreciate it. As Belinda Tete is Bono East regional correspondent, giving us an update of the impact of the strike. We're still monitoring that meeting, the National Council meeting of the Ghana Registered Nurse and Midwives Association, expected to take place in the next few hours ahead of us. So stay with us here on 3FM 92.7 and also on TV3. We'll give you some more updates, but let's go to some more stories. Investigative journalist Manasseh Azure Awene has welcomed the decision by government and also President John Dramani Mahama, stating that the government will not renew the contracts between the Youth Employment Agency, YEA, and Zoomlion Ghana Limited. President John Mahama has confirmed that the long-standing 19-year contract between the Youth Employment Agency and Zoomlion Ghana Limited will not be renewed upon its expiration. This decision was communicated in a letter dated June 11, 2025 to investigate journalist Manasseh Azure Awene, and also who petitioned him, that's the president, to discontinue the Zoomlion contract following years of advocacy and persistent allegations of corruption and mismanagement associated with the agreement. Now, we've got details of that particular one, and Lord Edwasar is going to be getting into it shortly for us. But investigative journalist Manasseh Azure Awene, who is elated with the government's decision, spoke with my colleague Kemini Amano earlier today.
This has been 12 years of consistent and persistent advocacy and also putting out investigative reports and evidence of how bad this deal was and wasn't helping the country in the sanitation sector and also the way we use our resources. And I can be thankful enough to His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama for this bold step.
The key things that the presidency tackles in the letter, for instance, we can talk about the livable income for people who sweep. That is good news, isn't it?
Yes, it is. One thing that has never left my mind was when I first did this story, I spoke to a 49-year-old widow who said she was doing this to take care of her 3 children. And anytime I have seen these people being exploited, that woman's interview always comes to mind. It is very unconscionable that human beings with brains would sit down and say that someone would work for a month, they don't have health insurance, they don't have transportation, they don't have any form of benefit. And at the end of the month, they go home with only 250 cedis. And some have tried to argue that, well, they don't work for all the 8 hours of the day, but we know how sweepers and cleaners work. The sweepers or cleaners at TV3 don't come and work throughout the day. They come in the morning, work, and then we go home, they come back to clean. That's how cleaners work across the world. So even if you claim that what they do merits 250 cedis, why do you pay someone 600 cedis to manage a 250 cedis worth of work? And that ill motivation has affected how they go out to work, and so many of them have stopped, but you have this company being paid for 45,000 people, and it makes about 27 million Ghana cedis a month. That's Zoomlion from this deal, whilst those working don't receive anything. So I'm very, very happy that going forward, the government is going to pay these people more. We are human beings, our brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers. And it is only fair that they are paid well.
When I say outside of cancelling or discontinuing the contracts with Zoomlion, the presidency also looks to perform some audits in payments and claims as well as in the fumigation contracts. How crucial are these steps?
They are, and these are issues I included in my petition. It wasn't only to discontinue the contract and increase the wages of the sweepers, but over the years, if you went to the YEA and then asked them to give you a list of the people on the ground sweeping, they wouldn't be able to say it. Even when YEA conducted its own research and went to the ground to do a head count, they got about 38,000 people on the ground. Even that, they said people were even included without they giving them appointment letters. But Zoomlion bills the government for 45,000, and the government has been paying, even though it could not and can still not say that this is the number on the ground which the company brings. So this is crucial to save us some money. And also with this fumigation, if you went to every assembly today and asked them whether they feel any impact of the fumigation, they'll tell you no. But there have been 3 separate fumigation contracts awarded to Zoomlion and its companies running concurrently, and then they pay them from the District Assembly's Common Fund, from the Ghana the National Health Insurance Levy. When hospitals were struggling for money, it emerged that the government had paid over 184 million cedis to Zoomlion for fumigation, which is not done. Hundreds of millions of cedis are paid yearly, also from the local government's ministry.
As Manasseh Azurawuni, investigative journalist there. We have a copy of this letter that the presidency wrote to Manasseh after that petition on the Zoomlion contract. And Lord Edwasari is joining me in the studio right now. Lord, what are the details of this letter as far as we do know?
Well, Alfred, so this letter was signed by Callistus Mahama, the secretary to the president, and copied the vice president and the chief of staff. Says that RE petition to discontinue the expired contracts between the Youth Employment Agency YEA and Zoomlion Ghana Limited. So the intro says that I refer to your letter dated April 27, 2025 on the above matter. His Excellency the President acknowledges the serious concerns raised in your letter and responds as follows. Expiration of contracts. The contract between Youth Employment Agency and Zoomlion Ghana Limited has expired and will not be renewed. 2. Audit of payments and claims. All payments made to Zoomlion after the contract expiration will be thoroughly audited. No further payments will be authorized without proper verification, and any unauthorized payments will be recovered. Thirdly, conduct competitive procurement. Cabinet has directed that future sanitation contracts be subjected to a competitive procurement process. Rather than one national contract, there should be regional or district-based tenders for private firms. This could reduce costs through competitive pricing and stimulate innovation as companies compete on service quality to secure contracts. A cabinet subcommittee will develop the modalities for implementing this. And then the fourth point says super fees. With probable cost savings, the government intends to increase the super fees to a more livable income. And then the final point being fumigation contracts. It says contracts that have not been performed satisfactorily will be reviewed and, where appropriate, terminated in accordance with the terms and upon the advice of the Attorney General. Please accept the assurances of my highest esteem. And that's a letter written on behalf of the President by the Secretary to the President, Callistus Mahama, to investigative journalist Manasseh Azuri Awuni.
Well, let's say a bit further on. They said Msenano is a co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Msenano, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
I know that this is one that you've also been following keenly and getting to know today, that this long-standing 19-year contract between the Youth Employment Agency and Zoomlion Ghana Limited will not be renewed upon its expiration after Manasseh petitioned the presidency, and the details, as you just heard from Lord Idiosare. How does all of this strike you?
Well, I'm absolutely delighted to hear that such an important decision has been made. Delighted for Ghana. Happy that Manasseh has pursued this to the logical conclusion. There are some obviously confidential matters that will have to be dealt with. But many of us have been extremely concerned about the re-centralization, where the center takes decisions on behalf of the local economies when they would have made better choices if they had full control over this decision-making process and were allowed to monitor and engage on a competitive basis. And so I am absolutely happy to hear this piece of news.
But beyond that, look at the details as we're being told now, that despite the expiration of the YEA Zoomlion contract, payments reportedly continued. Does this not reflect a failure of both the agency's internal controls and the oversight institutions like the Auditor General? Really? And what should be the consequence?
Yes, well, and I think it is in that context that the President has stated that there will be an audit of any payments made subsequent to the end of tenure of the contract. I think these are systemic issues and probably just a reflection of what is going on in many of our MDAs and other institutions where persons engage, and because there's a certain assumption of perpetuity, as if these people or these institutions or contracts or organizations will be there permanently, and so people will just continue making payments, assuming there'll be a renewal. All of that are the kind of things that we ought to flash out, make sure that any uncompetitive contracts, bids, suppliers who are not really giving value for money are weeded out of the system. Especially when it comes to decentralization, let's allow the municipalities and districts to take those decisions in the best interest of the locality.
See, and maybe very quickly before I let you go, I mean, many argue this sole source sanitation contracts like that of Zoomlion, should be looked at again and not be continued in its current form. In your view, how has the lack of the competitive procurement distorted the public spending in the sanitation sector specifically?
Well, it has, because you then have a monolith with a monopoly that is taking a lot of money at source. Probably certain persons benefiting, and therefore, first of all, the workers are not being paid properly. So there are human rights concerns there. And then you have the situation where the service itself is not a quality service. And so the health hazards are also being perpetuated. And then beyond that, the localities have no control. And so they have no capacity to say this should stop, etc. It's a model that has not served the best interest of this country. And it is good to know that we are beginning to see the disadvantages and take decisions that allow much more competitive value adding contracts and services to be provided to the citizens of this country.
Mr. appreciate your time on this. Thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you for having me.
Adam Sanondo is the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. We're also live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and on W 93.5 in WA and beyond. The Office of the President has requested clemency for some affected 64 radio stations to restore their broadcasting licenses. The National Communications Authority had directed several defaulting FM broadcasting stations across the country to immediately suspend operations due to persistent violations of broadcasting regulations. The directive followed an order from the Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovation, instructing the National Communication Authority to enforce sanctions on stations found non-compliant during a recent sector-wide audit. The infractions, according to the NCA, violates key provisions of the Electronic Communications Act 2008, Act 775, and also the Electronic Communications Regulations 2011, LI 1991. Let's take you through the defaulting categories. You have 28 FM stations found operating with expired authorizations. 14 stations failed to complete required setup procedures. 13 FM stations received provisional authorizations but have not completed fee payments. 7 stations paid provisional fees but have not fulfilled final authorization requirements. Now, topical amongst these stations that have been closed down, that were to be closed down. We also have PFM, Asase Radio, and Want to Me FM, and this also generated some conversation on the floor of Parliament. But let's take a listen to the Communications Minister, Samuel Nate George, on the floor of Parliament on the decision and the directive by the President for some clemency.
Mr. Speaker, the term of an FM radio broadcasting authorization is 5 years. Under Regulation 56 of the ECR 2011, a renewal application must be submitted to the NCA at least 3 months, 90 days before the expiration of the existing authorization. Failure to comply with this 90-day prior timeline results in the application or any new application being treated as a new application before the NCA. In fact, the Electronic Communications Tribunal, chaired by Justice Dateba, affirmed this position in the case of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association versus the NCA Appeal Number ECT/APP/002/2017. Mr. Speaker, on 12 February 2025, shortly after I assumed office as the Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovation, I issued a directive to the NCA to produce a complete listing of frequency authorizations granted or renewed within the preceding 60 days. The objective of the audit was to produce an accurate and up-to-date inventory of all assigned, unassigned, and unauthorized frequency holdings in Ghana. It sought to identify cases of spectrum hoarding, detect underutilized frequency bands, and strengthen enforcement action against entities operating outside the law. Mr. Speaker, alarming revelations unearthed by the initial exercise necessitated me to expand this directive to a nationwide forensic audit of all FM broadcasting authorizations aimed at discharging our sacred duty to manage state assets with integrity. This as part of our Operation Recover All Loot initiative, ORAL. Mr. Speaker, the NCA's audit showed several cases of non-compliance with the regulation and conditions of broadcasting authorization. The preliminary audit revealed over 600 active radio stations with frequencies, many of which were inactive, expired, or improperly renewed. Mr. Speaker, as of this morning, the NCA has commenced phase 2 of our regulatory enforcement following the broadcasting regulation frequency audit. This phase targets several categories of non-compliant FM stations whose operations contravene existing laws and regulations and includes the following. Group 1, 28 FM radio stations who are currently operating with expired authorizations. Despite the NCA instructing these stations to cease operations in 2024, several of these stations have continued broadcasting unlawfully. These actions constitute a violation of Section 2.4 of the Electronic Communications Act 2008. Group 2, 14 FM stations which were issued notices of revocation for failure to establish operations within the required 2-year period following the grant of their authorizations. These stations later requested technical inspections but have not completed the process and have continued to broadcast in violation of Regulation 54 of the Electronic Communications Regulation LI 1991. Group 3, 13 FM stations which applied for authorization to continue operating and have been issued provisional authorization but have not settled the provisional authorization fees in full.
Someone, George, there is a communications minister, but even before these radio stations, in fact, a number of them were shut down. The last time we checked, they were not on air, but there has been some clemency. Not too long ago, a communication came through from the presidency to the effect that President John Dramani Mahama has called for the immediate restoration of the broadcast services to the 64 radio stations shut down by the National Communications Authority for regulatory breaches. In a directive to the Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovation, President Mahama requested a collaboration between the ministry and the NCA to ensure the affected stations resume broadcasting without delay. This was contained in the release by the spokesperson to the President and Minister for Government Communications, Felix Kwachofosu, earlier today, few hours after the NCA shut down the stations. The statement explained that the President believes in the importance of balancing regulatory compliance with media freedom. Hence, quote, the requiring radio stations to shut down while awaiting the regularization of their authorization could limit the space for expressing such freedoms, unquote. The release stressed that media outlets play a vital role in democratic societies and should be supported in fulfilling that role. That's the statement from the presidency. But this matter also became really topical in Parliament. Alexander Panyumake, the Minority Leader, had this to say.
Mr. Speaker, the Constitution provides a comprehensive guide on the operations of the media space in Ghana. Let me rely on the views expressed by the Honorable Sam George, MP for Ningo Pampram, in the 8th Parliament. Mr. Speaker, he spoke strongly against ministerial action in respect of such defaults. He was against any form of penalty. And Mr. Speaker, in his arguments, he relied heavily on the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I adopt those views as though they were mine, to the extent that the Constitution makes certain broader provisions. And this is not to suggest that I am against the subsidiary laws enacted for the purposes of regulating these media houses as part of the checks and balances that are required or needed in every democracy. Mr. Speaker, democracy must be guided for the good of democracy itself. So I agree. But Mr. Speaker, in a situation where it becomes obvious that in the exercise of such discretion, there's a clear breach of Article 296, as my respected colleague, the former ambassador to South Africa and MP for Abril just said, the intent must be looked at. And clearly, it comes without doubt that Article 296 has some questions for NCA and the ministry to answer.
I have cited a correspondence, a letter written in 2022 and 2023, and I just think that it will be useful to close this matter by just reading those letters. Mr. Speaker, on the 22nd of February 2023, there was a letter addressed to the Managing Director, Wuntumi Multimedia Company Limited, Kumasi. Dear Sir, violation of conditions of authorization. We refer to the inspection conducted at the FM broadcasting premises of Wuntumi Multimedia Company Limited at Kokomlemle, Accra, in the Greater Accra region on 14th of June 2022. The inspection revealed the following lapses in the setup and operations of Wuntumi Multimedia Company Limited. 1. The station's transmission system was located at Accra Newtown instead of Ajangote, or within a 5-kilometer radius from Ajangote, as required by condition 3 of your authorization dated 26 October 2021. This is causing interference to stations using neighboring frequencies. 2. There was no fire certificate from the Ghana National Fire Service. No fire certificate. 3. There was no permit from the Environmental Protection Agency approving the installation of the mast. Wuntumi Multimedia Company Limited is hereby directed to rectify the above anomalies within 90 days from the date of this letter, that is by 21st May 2023, and invite the National Communication Authority for a second inspection. Please be informed that the cost of the second inspection amounts to 2,000 Ghana cedis and shall be borne by the Wuntumi Multimedia Company. Please take note that the issuance of a test transmission authorization for Wuntumi Multimedia Company Limited to commence operating its FM broadcasting station in Accra is pending compliance with the above directives. Yours faithfully, signed, Director General Joe Anochi. National Communication Authority Act 2008 and the Electronic Communication Act 2008. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask,
in 2008, who was in power? In 2008, who was in power? Who was in power? Which political party was in power? Which political party? The NPP. The NPP. The NPP was in power in 2008. And the laws that govern electronic communication and the National Communication Authority, which define the obligations of license owners, were passed by the NPP. So I am surprised that today, the leader of the minority, an MPP leader of the minority, and a lawyer for that matter, will stand in this chamber and say that it is unconstitutional and a violation of the Constitution for laws to be passed governing the management of frequencies. And yet, it was your party and your government in 2008 that enacted those legislation through this parliament. So I think that when you urge others to be consistent, you must also be consistent yourself. So if you say Sam George has to be consistent, I also want to also be consistent.
Well, so that's the Majority Leader, Mahama Ayariga, there on the floor of Parliament. As I indicated, this matter was topical on the floor of Parliament earlier today. That was after the communication by the Communications Minister, that's Samonate George, from the presidency, indicating that the president had called for the immediate restoration of the broadcast services to the 64 radio stations. And thankfully, we have Mr. Cecil Sonkwamel. He is the president of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, GIBA. He's joining us on the telephone right now. Sonkwamel, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm sure hearing the president's directive for the immediate restoration of the broadcast services to the 64 radio stations shut down by the NCA earlier today for the regulatory breaches must come up some relief, is it not?
Definitely. In fact, I was just speaking to another station and I said it's commendable. And they were asking me why. And I said it's just giving us a bit more space to discuss what we do in Ghana when these issues come up and how we resolve them. And is there room for remedy before the absolute shutdown? Because there's still the need for the media to still do its work. What this also means is that with this 30 days, at least, those stations, besides having the opportunity to remedy their infractions, the people who listen to them still have access to media, which is very important. So we welcome that.
Yeah, and I'm sure as an association as well, as this comes as some relief and good news, it is also the responsibility of these affected stations to do the needful within the 30-day period, is it not?
Yeah, it's not actually just a relief, but it's actually a time for us to do a bit more work to help the stations who have infractions, because we've had a phase one where we actually sent out a circular to our members. And let me clarify here that it's not all radio and TV stations that are actually our members. But we did send, so it may not cover all the stations in the country. But we did send out a circular, and we got some stations who came to us, and we guided them and referred them to help resolve some of the issues they had, which were infractions that they had to deal with. Now, having done that, we have not had any other stations come to us that the NCA had written to them till today that we have had this come up. But remember that whatever we do and whatever we push for is actually for the industry. So that has been the path.
Indeed, and it's good that you put that clarification that not all these radio stations are members of the Ghana Independent Broadcast Association. But then again, we had the details of a letter read by the Majority Leader on the floor of Parliament, addressed to one of the affected radio stations today by the NCA, as far back as 2022, reminding them that they had not fulfilled a number of requirements, including the lack of a fire certificate, for instance. And then there was a follow-up letter in 2023. If there are those kinds of reminders and then there is an eventual decision of a shutdown, from the association's perspective, that's concerning. The inaction or the lack of action on the part of this said radio station to, as it were, regularize its operations, is it not?
I agree with you completely. And I think when I started, I did tell you that we did reach out for stations. And remember that it's not been only with NCA regulatory compliance that we reach out to our members. Sometimes we also do tax compliance with them to ensure that they've met all the requirements for the tax for GRA. So it is something that we look at all the areas where you need to be compliant. It is required, But at the same time, you would also for any organization, whilst you have the clear rules, etc., you would also want to expand, especially because it is media, and it has a specific and a special role to play in our community. We would want to also make sure that we have established vehicles that can sit in the middle when these infractions appear to give a bit more of an expanded hearing from another focus. For example, the broadcasting bill we want to put out tends to pull in a stakeholder like the NMC to be a bit more involved in some of the work that is done. Because from their position, they appreciate more the value of media and the impact it has, probably more than NCA, who, of course, will be focusing a lot more on regulating and making sure that frequency use and the revenue comes through. So you get a bit of a hybrid which works, which is one of the things that we are hoping and working towards so we can have. So, yes, I agree with you. Compliance is something that we do not joke about, and we expect that people should be regulated. But however, we must also create the opportunity because it is media. So then we make sure that the impact of loss does not affect the people of the country in terms of their access to communication.
I appreciate your time. This is Thomas Neilante. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
He's a president of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, that's GIBA. We'll be back shortly, and with the details of the business news, Bismarck Ewusa is standing by. Stay with us.
Hello, Ghana. It's a new year, and Bill's Microcredit is here to support your dreams. If you're not working but want to start a business, don't let money stop you. With just your Ghana card, you can get a loan to turn your ideas into reality. Already running a business? Need more capital? Or are you a salary worker looking for extra funds? Bills offers fast and easy loans with no collateral, no deposit, and no SUSI savings required. Wherever you are, whatever you need, Bills makes it happen. Call Bills Microcredit today. Call 0596 920 833 or 0302 200 390 and get started. Bills is licensed and regulated by the Bank of Ghana. Bills, financing your needs. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the business news on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, Ghana ranked 8th among Africa's top manufacturing nations as new report cites growth in agro-processing, cocoa value addition and global footprint of some local firms. I am Bismarck Hausa. This headline story and others lined up for you. Please stay. Thanks for your company. Now to the very first story. Ghana has been ranked 8th among Africa's top 10 manufacturing countries, according to a report by the African Exponent. The report highlights Ghana's long-term focus on value-added manufacturing in agriculture and cocoa, which has transformed its industrial landscape. The following 3 Business News Desk report has details.
According to the African Exponent report, the One District, One Factory initiative has contributed to the growth of small and medium enterprises in the country. Established firms like Casapreco and Fan Milk have extended Ghana's manufacturing reach internationally. The report ranks South Africa as the continent's leading manufacturing nation, followed by Egypt and Nigeria. These countries have demonstrated significant industrial growth, driven by advanced infrastructure, diversified industrial bases, and strategic partnerships. Other top manufacturing countries in Africa include Morocco, Kenya, Algeria, Ethiopia, Tunisia, and Zambia. The report highlights the leading sectors in each country, including automotive, steel, chemicals, food processing, cement, textiles, and pharmaceuticals. It further suggests that Ghana's manufacturing sector can learn from the successes of these countries and continue to grow and develop its industrial base.
And that was a 3 Business News Desk report on Ghana ranking 8th among Africa's top manufacturing nations. Moving on, the second Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Matilda Asante-Siedu, says the collateral registry is advancing efforts to become a fully integrated digital platform that aligns with Ghana's evolving financial landscape. Delivering remarks at Day 2 of the registry's 15th anniversary celebration, she outlined plans to connect the platform with credit bureau, digital identity systems and e-government services to enhance real-time lending decisions and broaden access to finance. In a speech read on her behalf by Head of Regional Branch and Coordinating Office at the Central Bank, Dr. Seto Amediku, she also acknowledged the continued support of key partners across the financial and legal sectors in driving the registry's progress.
The collateral registry continues to play a critical role in reducing transactional costs by streamlining the process of registering and searching for collateral and improving small and medium-sized enterprises' access to credit. As our economy becomes more digitized, the demand for innovative credit solutions will continue to grow. The collateral registry will evolve to meet these needs by integrating with other digital platforms such as credit bureaus, digital identity systems, and e-government platforms. The goal is to build a fully interoperable financial infrastructure that supports real-time data-driven decision-making and inclusive access to finance.
And that was economist and Head of Regional Branch and Coordinating Office at the Bank of Ghana delivering a speech on behalf of Second Deputy Governor Matilda Asante-Siedu. Now, Ghanaian startups are being urged to adopt international standards like ISO certification to improve their chances of scaling and attracting investment. This call by Go Compliance Solutions comes as more local startups struggle to secure funding despite promising ideas and products. The following report has details. Compliance expert and chief executive of Go Compliance Solutions, James Ofori, argues ISO certification could be the missing piece for startups to scale operations, attract investors, and enter competitive markets.
Currently, if you look at the entrepreneurship sector,
businesses are really struggling. Why am I saying so? If you look at some of the requirements that they need to meet, they have no idea. So they start business along the line and then they crash. When you need to even take the business to another stage, maybe scale it up a bit, it becomes very difficult. They have basically no idea. And some of the government regulations are also one way or the other frustrating them.
James Ofori also notes that poor bookkeeping remains a key reason many early-stage businesses are denied financing.
We have one clause that talks about document control. So that clause normally addresses bookkeeping, how you maintain your records, your documentation, both filing and retrieval systems. We guide them through those processes as well.
Go Compliance Solutions, a local firm focused on regulatory advisory, offers capacity building and tailored support for early-stage businesses, making compliance, record keeping and certification more accessible. And that report bringing an end to the business news on Hot Edition with me, Bismarck Ausa. For more business stories, please check out our website, s3news.com. Thanks for your company.
Gets busy on this frequency. 92.7 3 FM.
Get ready, Ghana. The road is calling. The wheels are spinning. It's the 3FM Tour du Ghana, happening Saturday, 21st June, 2025. From the heart of Accra to the border town of Aflao, we are paddling for the planet in a thrilling 192-kilometer ride across Ghana's scenic Eastern Corridor. Whether you're a scenic cyclist or a passionate paddle pusher, it's your moment to shine. Form your teams, grab your helmets, and race for glory in Ghana's biggest cycling showdown. Challenge your limits, conquer the distance, ride for sustainability, be part in Ghana's biggest cycling showdown. Challenge your limits, conquer the distance, ride for sustainability, be part of history. To register, call 053 11 00 927 or 053 22 00 927.
Lifestyle Radio.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on CFM 92.7. My name is Oreku Ampafo, and we'll be starting off from Christopher Babonsu, who has quickly become one of the breakthrough stars for the Black Stars. He made his debut in the Unity Cup against Nigeria and did dazzle in London, especially in that match against the Super Eagles, and then the third place playoff against Trinidad and Tobago. Now, the gang forward has been speaking to 3 Sports on a number of issues. Let's first take a listen on what he thinks his future is with the Black Stars and his aspirations.
He's also in Europe, so I think he understands the game and he know what to do and what he should not do, because we don't know each other, we just met. So I think we just spoke together and I told him we should just click and have a conversation together, or like just communicate. So that's how it was. Yeah, I won't say I'm looking forward for Tuado to bring me back to the team. I just have to focus on myself, like what I did for him to call me. I have to do extra, and like maybe at the end of the day we'll see what will happen.
So that is Christopher Bonsu speaking there. However, we still stay on young players because Abdul Rashid Husseini has also been on a similarly inspiring journey. The 21-year-old Ghanaian midfielder's career has taken him from the pitches of Tamale to Accra, a stint with Manchester United's youth setup, and now to NK Tabor Cezana in Slovenia's second division. Hussaini has also become a key figure for the club and is steadily building his reputation with consistent performances and a growing leadership role. In an exclusive interview with eSports, Hussaini also reflects on his path through different football cultures, the challenges and lessons learned along the way.
I play for Young Wolves, but this time around they turned the name to Northern Boys. That was the only team I played for in Tamale. Yeah, last year, when I first went there, that was my first time playing senior professional football. So the first year was quite difficult because of tactics and some little things. Yeah. Basically, it was tactics because sometimes they know you know how to play, but if you don't understand the tactics, it's hard to get you involved. So I didn't get it easy the first year, but the second year I tried to learn quick to catch up with the guys, and from there I started to be a main starter in the team. Yeah, it really went well, but the England rules when you are young and you are from Ghana or you are from Africa, it's hard to stay because of the work permit and those things, so they cannot sign you there, you cannot stay. So it was quite hard, but it was good for the experience and then for the people you meet and then the environment and then just exposure, that kind of thing. So it was good.
And so that was Abdul Rashif Hussaini, who also plies his trade in Slovenia, Ghana midfielder there. Let's do some more specifically on the local scene, where the Ghana President Cup is set to take place on July 6th between fierce rivals Kotoko and Hartlefolk. The tournament is played annually in the honor of the sitting president. This year's edition will be played to honor President John Dramani Mahama. Ahead of the game, the official launch was held at the Accra Sports Stadium on Thursday. Gauka chairman John Ansa has urged fans to ensure that they come in their numbers to make the event a memorable one.
The VVIP will come with a complimentary. The VIP will also come with a complimentary. The rest of the stadium will come with free.
Still on the Gauka Cup, we hear from Safo Duku, who is the communications director for Asante Kotoko. He's still upbeat of the Porcupines Warriors' chances against their rivals, Hartlefolk.
I wonder how this competition would have received the necessary attention without Kotoko. Because it's a fact that you can't play such a match without bringing in Kotoko. Because the enthusiasm, the euphoria, everything will be lost completely. And so we were only waiting for a call. But we knew that obviously it will come. As for the outcome of the match, even our opponents can tell you. Because for 5 consecutive times we have met them, they have not even recorded a win. The last 5 matches have been 4 wins for Kotoko and a draw for Hartlefolk. So the outcome is clear.
So that is Safuduku, who is the communications director of Kumasi Asante Kotoko. Let's do some boxing now, where in a bid to revive the adrenaline fortunes of the sport, Legacy Ride Sport Battle of the Beast event will take place on Friday at the Bukom Arena. The number of bouts will be lined up as boxers eagerly await their turn. The headline bout, however, is between US boxer Andrew Tabiti and Ghana's Jacob Dixon, who are set to square off for the WBC Africa Bridgerweight title. Ahead of the bout, both boxers remain confident from their chances.
Legacy Rise Promotions, Amir Khan Promotions, and Nova Sports for this opportunity. But this opportunity is bigger than me. This is a chance to put a spotlight on Ghana boxing and boxing in Africa. So I'm coming to show out. I'm coming to the fight and knock this guy out.
This is a biggest opportunity for me and my team and my family and everyone that support me. I never expect this fight because this opponent of mine is one of my biggest idol. Someone that I was looking for. I was looking ahead to. I started boxing at the age of 14 years. I started looking at him when I was young. and I wish to be like him.
That's how we bring the end to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. A reminder that this evening at 9 p.m. on TV3, Thomas Partey would be speaking to Michael Lutije on a number of issues on the end of the 2024-2025 season, the captaincy issues with the Black Stars, and then also what the future holds for Partey as his contract with Arsenal has officially expired. You can get that live on TV3 tonight at 9 p.m. My name is Oreku Ampofo. That's how we'll also be bringing an end to Hot Edition. We'll be bringing you updates on our social media at 3SportsGH, and we'll definitely bring you more updates ahead of a big weekend on Friday as well.
Thank you. It's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. On behalf of the rest of the team, we do appreciate your company. Thank you so much for staying with us. Join me at 10 p.m. on TV3 for Ghana Tonight. My name is Alfred Ocansey. Have a great evening.